Hey everyone, welcome to the GTM News Show. I got Matt here today. Hey Matt, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Taylor.
Matt is a business development leader, SDR leader, and came across. Actually, I think when we first came across each other was you were a leader of a local chapter of a community group called Pavilion. And then we've got connected on LinkedIn and followed some of your great content and seen you as you've developed different strategies and worked in different teams. And today, the reason why I brought you on was I'd love to get your insights on really business development, SDRs, building teams, what tactics are working, where does it make sense in 2023, how are things evolving, so I'd love to just jump right in. Kind of the first kind of question being, kind of being an SDR in 2023. What does it look like from a kind of a best practice standpoint, and where have you seen kind of that role evolve, and folks that are using it the best? Maybe talk about that a little bit as well. Will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest change in 2023 versus even just 5 years ago as an SDR, by far, is that your prospects and your buyers are a lot smarter than they used to be. The amount of outreach that the people you are selling to get is somewhere between 20 and 100x what it was just 5 years ago. The marketing leaders, the sales leaders, the HR leaders, the finance, they are getting hit up hour by hour, if not 10 minutes by 10 minutes, by different SDRs, different sellers, AEs that are self-prospecting, the whole shebang. And the average SDR team and the average SDR leader hasn't adapted to that. And what's happening is we're seeing these SDR groups use the same strategies that they used 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago that were working, right? Here's what I do. Here's a relevant value prop. Can I have 15 minutes to talk to you? And if your value prop is relevant, 5 years ago, that got a meeting like 20% of the time. People were like, yeah, I actually do care about that, so let me talk to you. The world today of smart, you're a marketing leader. You're a buying persona for a lot of SDRs, right? Like, just because it's relevant doesn't mean I'm going to respond to you anymore, because you get so many of those all the time. So the evolution that's starting to take place, some people are doing it, most people are not, and it's the way that SDRs are getting ahead right now, is you have to find a way to authentically connect with the person, not simply by providing value that makes sense for their persona. So what I mean by that is, if you sell to sales, right? Every sales leader in the world wants more revenue. That is an indisputable fact. If I am reaching out to you with a way to increase your revenue, logic says you should be interested, because increasing your revenue is a positive thing. Sales leaders don't respond to that value prop anymore. In fact, they don't even respond that much to value props in general. The way that you need to connect with that sales leader is you have to find an authentic piece of connection. It can be an employee there that's someone you know. It can be a relationship that you have with a university that they went to, or a hobby that they have. It can be as simple as referencing an unconventional method of research. I connected with a CMO recently via cold email because I said at the bottom of my email, P.S. I know you love stale Twizzlers. I have to know, do you like red or black more? And she responded, because I found her Twitter that in 2017, she tweeted, stale licorice is better than any other type of licorice. That got the response. It had nothing to do with my value prop. It had nothing to do with how valuable it would be, because CMOs get people every day. They get people reaching out every day. So you have to find this way to actually genuinely connect. And it's because we can't trick these smart people anymore. SDRs can't trick a buyer into taking the meeting because of bells and whistles. They're too smart. And the biggest thing that SDRs are missing right now is that your prospect is 2 to 3 times smarter than they were 5 to 10 years ago, and therefore you can't use the same method. It doesn't mean the method is bad. It doesn't mean it didn't work before. It did. But just because I wore a rain jacket when it was pouring rain doesn't mean it makes sense to wear a light rain jacket when it's hailing and 20 degrees out, right? Like the environment has changed and the people on the other end have changed. And we aren't seeing a lot of SDR teams adapt to that. We're seeing SDR teams get frustrated that what used to work doesn't work anymore. And we're seeing SDR leaders saying, you just got to do more. You're not doing enough. Do more. Go figure it out. More people, more emails, more personalization. That's not the way through. More is not the answer. It's understanding that the people on the other end are a lot smarter than they used to be.
Super helpful, Matt. Thank you. I think it's easy to kind of be critical of, even as a marketer or even a sales leader or whatnot, of your own initiatives. There's always room for improvement, right? There's always room to optimize. But I think what's really powerful is that understanding the landscape has changed, and even how folks are educated about products or how they're connecting to products, or even the evolution of ChatGPT, right? Like I can't even wrap my head around how it's going to change buying behavior, how folks are going to access things differently, or how we're going to connect to solve problems differently, right? And the amount of documents I have that are just like cool software I've come across, just like I literally just have like list of things I'm like I'll never get to. It's a cool idea, it's a cool tool, it's a cool whatever. There's no possible way. I think, and just the amount of competition. Every channel is more saturated than it's ever been. If you're in any particular vertical, right, or let's say if you're in SaaS, there's more software platforms than ever. There's just more competition, and so not only product positioning, but then also how you go to market is super hard. Anything in regards to other, maybe even specific tactics you've seen? I really love that story about calling out something from 6 years ago. Anything else that sticks out as far as like ways folks can connect authentically and genuinely in a creative way to stand out?
Yeah. So you've got to be multi-channeled when you're reaching out. You need to be calling, you need to be emailing, you need to be sending a video or two, you need to be using Sendoso or a similar platform to offer a physical item. You have to go after your prospect in a multitude of different ways. But I think something that I've taught a few of my SDR teams that I've seen is working is understanding that the person on the other end you are a stranger to them, right? Like if I am reaching out with cold outreach to someone as an SDR, I am a stranger by definition to that person. And so what is going to encourage a stranger to keep talking to me? And the best way to think about this is think about when you're walking through the mall. And we've all done it. We've all walked through the mall and somebody says, "Excuse me." Right? And if someone does that to you, Taylor, when you're walking through the mall, going to a store, what do you do?
Excuse me. Yeah, or get out of the way, or you say hello, or whatever.
Do you stop and talk to that person?
Sure. Yeah. Or at least for a second.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You are a rare breed. You are a rare breed, my friend, because the average person pretends to ignore it, right? Because I don't want to be rude to this person, so if I didn't hear, I'm not rude. Says no thank you. Might even do one of these. The average person doesn't engage with that stranger.
Yeah.
Because you're a stranger, I'm doing my thing. We're not connected. So how do you approach that interaction? How do you, as a stranger, become somebody that the other person wants to talk to? Well, you have to be logical with where your relationship is with this person, and you have to soften what you're asking for. So it is an SDR's favorite thing to end their emails with some version of, can I have 15 minutes to talk to you? Some version of, when's good, what time, 30 minutes, lunch on me, whatever. Some version of, let's meet. And if we put this into real perspective, right? You are a stranger that within the first 60 seconds of the other person meeting you as a stranger, you're asking them to commit time to spend with you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. If the person at the mall that you actually do stop and listen to said, I'd like to schedule 30 minutes with you next week, like, what are we even talking about? I don't even know you. I don't know you. You're a stranger, right? Yeah. So, like, what works is you need to actually have your call to action in your cold outreach be designed to start a conversation instead of being designed to book a meeting. And an SDR is not going to like hearing this from me because it means they have to do more work. Because if you can put a CTA that says, can I have 15 minutes, and they'll do it, yeah, you win. Yeah. Like, I succeeded. But your show rates are bad on those, your close one rates are bad on those. That's not success. Success is understanding how to start the conversation. So an example of that is going to be what I've called power questions in my career. The question needs to start with either the word how or the word what. It cannot be binary. It cannot be yes or no. And it needs to be something that is designed for you to start conversing with me back and forth. So if I'm trying to sell you account-based marketing software as a marketer, instead of saying, can I have 15 minutes next week, I should end my email with something like, Taylor, how do you and your team currently prioritize which accounts get the most advertising dollars? Because that's something that you don't mind telling me. You don't mind starting a conversation. And you can't answer it with yes. You can't answer it with no. It requires you to start conversing back and forth. And then when we have a back and forth conversation, hopefully I can earn the right to ask you to get together next week at some point. But the tactic needs to shift from, I wrote a really good email and therefore they should meet with me, to, I understand that I am a stranger. So I'm still going to write a really good email, and I'm just going to ask that they stop walking instead of keeping walking through the mall, not saying, excuse me, sir, 30 minutes on Wednesday, can I please put you in the calendar? Because even you, as a nice person, you're not stopping for that guy.
Right. Totally. Yeah, no, I can totally resonate with that. And too, there's, even as a consumer, I think, even you mentioned, being a buyer persona, I get hit up a lot by, folks selling stuff. And, I think it's amazing is I think even the sheer volume of it, not even like, I think you mentioned buyers are educated. I think we have more access to information. We have more access to ways of solving problems, but also just the sheer volume of outreach too. And so I think standing out, how do you stand out in the sheer volume is step number one. But then I think I love that the how or what. That reminds me of Chris Voss. I think I learned a similar concept from him.
That's where it comes from.
Nice. And it's a great way just to, I think it's a great actually life hack in some ways of like, even when I'm talking to my wife, I'm like, how was your day? Or what's on your mind? Or, starting the conversation in the sense of, allowing them to be open and less binary, and less selfish too, right? It's like you share, I want you to talk about what's important versus me, driving my agenda or me switching it to talking about my product, or in my situation with my wife, talking about my day, right? Definitely doesn't get as far, in the relational capital world. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, you mentioned tech stack a little bit. What other things are kind of required in general? I think a lot of times folks think they need to go buy a bunch of technology to get started. Other times technology I've found, especially do things, at scale, or if you're dealing with teams for sure. maybe getting started, what would you think as like a tech stack just to get started as a small team, right? Let's say you're just getting your SDR team started, and then maybe at scale, right? As you're building out, I know you've worked with, SDR teams in the 50 or so team range, which is definitely bigger than I'm sure a lot of folks are at right now. But I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on the differences and what does that arc look like?
Definitely. So of course everybody's going to have a CRM. I think we're at a point now that even if you're a small team, you do need a sales engagement platform. So you need Outreach or SalesLoft or Apollo, something that's going to do your calls and emails. That's a sequencing tool. I think it's necessary. I'm also a believer that you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator as an SDR now, to map organizations effectively, to understand who's where, to know who's connected to. LinkedIn is so powerful, especially for the modern seller and the technology seller. It's incredibly powerful. And then, I'm certain you've seen them around. I'm guessing a lot of people watching this have seen them around, but I'm Team Lavender. I'm very heavily on Team Lavender. I think that, candidly, I think that Lavender is going to end up getting bought by Outreach or SalesLoft or somebody, but the product they have is so strong to gamify writing cold emails, to use data in a way that makes it fun and interesting for the SDR, saying you have to figure out how to make this shorter or you're gonna get less opens. You have to have a better subject line or you're not gonna get opens. You have to make your email dumber. Stop writing like a university professor, right? Like a third grader. And that's going to get you more opens. And it's all backed by data, right? This isn't stuff that Will and Will Lavender made up. It's stuff that actually is driven by millions and millions of email data points that they have. I'm a believer that just like when I started in the tech world, Outreach and SalesLoft were emerging. And now you can't even think of a sophisticated sales org that doesn't have an engagement platform and a sequencing tool. I think that in 3 years, we're going to see the same thing with Lavender. You can't have an effective sales org if you're not using data the right way to maximize your outreach.
Love it. Yeah, those tools, and I've used all of those and completely agreed from the sense of doing things well and having the right data and even LinkedIn Sales Navigator is an incredibly powerful tool to get introductions and whatnot. We're actually out of time. Matt, how can folks follow you? How can they connect with you online? Yeah.
Anybody's welcome to have me on LinkedIn. It's very simple, LinkedIn/in/Matt Liebman. P.S. If you're on LinkedIn and you haven't updated your URL to get rid of the random numbers and letters yet, do that immediately. It's very bad for your brand if you have a LinkedIn URL that ends with a bunch of random letters and numbers.
Good call.
But definitely feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always interested to talk to SDRs, SDR leaders, to marketers that are trying to figure out the sales development relationship, even to closers that are frustrated with their SDRs, and how as a closing team you can better support your SDRs. So anybody's welcome to reach out.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming on. Great talking to you. Yes, definitely folks reach out to you on LinkedIn. We'll put those links in the show notes below. Thanks again, Matt. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya.